Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Zach Kazan. I'm the managing editor at Worn and Wound. You have found us on our roughly monthly Q&A episode. I have a full house today, joined by Zach Weiss, Devin Pennypacker, Garrett Jones. Zach, Devin, Garrett, welcome to the podcast. It's great to see you guys. It's great to have you here.
No, it's great to see you.
Thank you,
Zach.
Yeah, we got the full Brady Bunch thing happening in the
Except all dudes.
Studio. Except all dudes. Yeah, oops, all dudes. Well, thanks guys for coming on the monthly Q&A episode. We've got some questions submitted from our Instagram audience, YouTube audience, Slack group. They're just coming in fast and furious from everyone. Devin, you told me we have more than enough for the full hour-long episode today. So apologies in advance if we don't get to your question. Keep asking them. We do this for about once a month. So one of my favorite episodes to do. Before we get into the questions, let's do a quick wrist check, as is customary on these podcasts. Zach, let's start with you. What are you wearing today?
I have on today the Garrick Regulator Mark II.
Excellent.
The old Mark II regulator.
Devin, how about you? What have you got?
Well, I have high horology on the cheap with the Mito TV Big Date, the tip dial.
Wow.
One of the cheaper Big Dates you can get out there in the automatic version. But
I'm sure they'll love you're invoking the word cheap to
I said high horology. I did say on the cheap, but honestly, it's a Big Date complication and an automatic movement for right around $1,000, and I think the watch looks fantastic. You can get a titanium version now, and a chronograph, which is whatever, but the titanium's cool.
Yeah, no, Mito's one of those brands that I admit I don't spend a ton of time thinking about, but every once in a while I'll come across one just scrolling through Instagram or you doing a wrist check on a podcast, and
Swatch Daddy will set you up over here.
And those TV case watches are pretty cool. I think they're definitely onto something there. Yeah. So excellent. Garrett, how about you? What do you got?
Just the classical Speedo.
Try again. Take it from the top.
Yeah, just the classic Speedy on a pumpkin orange.
All right.
Rubber strap.
Well, yeah. Excellent. I'm wearing a new addition to my collection. I've got the Otsuka Low-Tech No. 5 Kai, is what this watch is called. I ordered this watch a while ago. It shipped. There was a customs delay. Thank you, United States Customs, Border Patrol folks, and FedEx. But it made it to me eventually. And it's fantastic. It's really great. We'll throw a link in the show notes to a photo I took on Instagram of this watch. It's very unique. Really, really enjoying it. Zach, you own an Otsuka Low-Tech as well.
I do.
You can speak to
very enjoyable,
the originality and just kind of unique pleasure of these watches. I think they're pretty special.
Yeah, dystopian, steampunky kind of. I don't even know, but very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Not quite dystopian. There's a little bit of
everything feels dystopian in 2025.
Yeah, that's true. It's like haute horology after the collapse.
Yes, sure. That's a good way to think of it. All right, well, let's get started with the questions. Devin, as always, you're the keeper of the questions. What have we got? Kick us off.
Let's just warm people up here. Obviously, we have we need a little bit of warming up based on our intros here. So let's just start off with something simple and ask everybody here: what is your favorite modern Tudor?
Favorite modern Tudor? I mean, I can go first. I've been thinking about this a lot because I just wrote about it. It's my Tudor Black Bay Burgundy, the Medas certified movement, the 5-link bracelet. That's the Tudor I kind of chose to own. That it just kind of immediately struck me as the watch that I would want to wear. They make a lot of good watches. There isn't really a bad watch that they make, in my opinion. Everything's very high quality. Listen, we can talk about the P01 if you want, if that was what you were gonna.
Oh no, P01's fine. I think the 1926 just feels remarkably un-Tudor-esque.
Okay, fair. I mean, I guess if you want to,
it's not bad. It's just not very Tudor. It's just there.
I don't know if I'd say it's not very Tudor. They have a long history of making watches kind of like that. But among the sports watches, the kind of the tried and true sports watches that have made them a juggernaut, I don't think there's a bad watch in the bunch. But anyway, yeah, I mean, the answer for me is easy. It's the Black Bay Burgundy. How about you guys?
Go with the 54. End of story.
Yeah. All right.
Boring answer. No, I mean, it's the one I have. It's the last one I bought. It's the last one I feel like I felt an urge to purchase. Not that there haven't been many nice ones since, but it was like the one that, got me and is bit sticky in my collection as well, which is also nice. But yeah, this is a damn fine dive watch they have there.
It's pretty good. It's a little on the small side for my wrists, but if my wrists were smaller, I think that would probably be my pick as well, because it is proportionally.
They have a 43 millimeter one for you.
Yeah, it's just not for me. For me, it has to be the Pelagos Ultra, because that thing stole the show for me this entire year. Honestly, Zach, if you didn't own the Black Bay Burgundy, it would probably be the monochrome, because I love that watch. I still think about that watch a lot, but I mean, we can't both own.
Well, what is my owning the Burgundy?
We can't both own watches that similar. That's just not okay in my book.
Does the universe collapse if you and I have a overlap in the collection?
Pretty sure it does. Yeah. So I have to go Tudor Pelagos Ultra. That watch. I mean, come on, that watch is just incredible too.
It's pretty good. I was impressed by it when I saw it earlier this year in Switzerland for sure. Garrett, what's your favorite Tudor?
Since y'all are all going metal cases, I've got to go with the carbon fiber Red Bull Racing GMT.
There you go. Yeah, the carbon fiber stuff is cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, they have a lot of watches, don't they?
So many. Yeah.
I haven't thought about Tudor in a minute, so I was just the only one that really comes to my mind is the 54 since I have it. But FXDs, those are solid watches. I really like the GMT that they came up with last year.
Yeah,
that's all. Another good one. That's all I have to say.
Everything's just really solid. They're not the most exciting brand. I don't wait on pins and needles for the next Tudor press release. Every morning, but the watches are good. They're high quality. People like them. Solid stuff. Breaking news. We like Tudor, I guess.
Yeah, it's a damn fine watch.
Shocker. Yeah. Who would have guessed?
Yeah. All right. What's next?
All right. We got a lot of questions about pricing and tariffs. And I mean, Zach, you can kick the podcast off about tariffs here. So we had first question. We'll just kick it off here. Is the secondary market in the U.S. picking up because of tariffs on primary markets?
So I don't know the answer to that question. I did see a headline on another website kind of highlighting the recent watch charts report saying that the secondary market is up, slightly, and maybe linking that to tariffs. I haven't read that, but we'll put a link to that in the show notes. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's something that there's probably data to support that maybe I just don't have my arms around, so I'd hesitate to speculate on.
I mean, I feel like there's a logic to it.
Yeah,
that it would make sense, but it also has to be within the U.S. that the purchasing is taking place, because you would still, I think, get tariffed on pre-owned items coming in from overseas. So, it's therefore the segment is smaller than it would be to begin with. So, it probably affects what that number would really look like.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Have either of you guys, Devin, Garrett's, observed anything or have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I feel like I've seen prices creep a little bit on secondary market, but that could just be general shifting. I wouldn't necessarily go out and say oh yeah, it's tariffs driving it, but I mean, it certainly can't hurt anything for anyone trying to move a watch in the U.S.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, the market feels a little bit weak at the moment, but I think that also might just be perception as far as fear goes. But if I've learned anything from Love is Blind recently, you can be a secondhand watch dealer and be rich and own a cabin in the mountains. So I don't think that it's really changing anything.
Wait, hang on, time out. Is there a secondhand watch dealer on the new season of Love is Blind? I've never seen an episode of this show.
And he's the worst person ever. He sucks real hard. I'm going to make that statement proudly on this podcast. I don't like that guy. He just seems like a terrible person.
Well, that's going to be I've never seen the show, but that's going to be my cultural recommendation, is to watch Love is Blind for the watch dealer. Just putting that out there.
He talks about watches a lot. He flashes his watch at the screen quite frequently. When he meets everybody, he immediately starts talking about Cartier, and it's all right, guy. All right.
I mean,
one of those.
Yeah.
I gotta say, for all the people who like try to tell me about this show, no one has ever mentioned this watch dealer character. So I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah, it seems. How has this not been like the topic of many certain types of watch publications? Is what I want to know. This feels hot. This feels like the gossip, the tea.
It was a little bit of gossip when it first came out, but it very quickly became a thing where people realized he had like 1,500 followers and he actually was not a big deal at all. And he came from like Family Money, and then everyone just quickly
sounds like
to the next.
So he's
sounds pretty normal.
Another pre-owned watch sounds exactly like everyone else.
Yeah,
he loves Cartier. Yeah.
Well, there's some mid podcast culture for everybody out there.
Culture in quotes. Yeah,
quote unquote. Interesting. All right. Here's a fun one we can jump into. We had a first-time caller, long-time listener from Brazil. When you review a watch, are there times you feel you're reviewing the brand's philosophy and identity more than the object itself?
That's a good question. I think sometimes. I think that especially if it's a new brand that maybe requires like a bit of an introduction to the reader, that they might not be familiar with. I think that sometimes a watch review can sort of be part of a watch review, is sort of trying to unpack, the as the questioner puts it, the philosophy of the brand. But yeah, I think that can add context to to the object itself, is kind of like, understanding what the goals of the brand are, both in terms of like making that watch and making watches more generally. So yeah, I think that's part of it. I think you have to balance the review with sort of like the big picture, like high level stuff like that, with the more granular, sort of like on wrist impressions, the typical sort of stuff that you see in a review.
It's interesting. I haven't really thought about it like that, but now that I'm kind of like processing it, I feel like we've said before over time, Zach, I like that the story sometimes it's particularly from big brands, sometimes doesn't really count, like the kind of at times bullshit marketing exercises that kind of put behind things. And sometimes the philosophies can be sort of wrapped up in that stuff, and sometimes not. I do think you need to know, like you're saying, the context of the brand, like if they have a goal in mind. I will say, though, more often than not, they're very generic. A lot of brands are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to make the watch they always dreamed of. They're trying to make the ultimate sport watch at a certain price, et cetera, et cetera. So like, it doesn't really amount to very much. And so like, ultimately for me, at least, like design needs to do the talking,
but that's fair. Yeah. I think in our space, it makes a big difference. Because we obviously write a lot about more independent and micro brand watches than I think maybe some other publications might. And in those situations, we are telling brand story maybe more often than some other publications might be. And so, yeah, I mean, there have been a lot of reviews where I start to tell the brand story or philosophy or identity before I talk about the watch. But I think on the flip side, too, there have been times where I've started to write reviews where I've noticed that start to get in the way a little bit. And I've had to stop myself and kind of cut a lot out and almost start from scratch, where I realized that I was diving too much into it and it actually didn't matter and was actually affecting the review in a way that would steer people in the wrong direction. So yeah, there's definitely a balance you have to strike where you have to decide if it really means anything in terms of the watch, or if it's something that people need to know, or you just need to put it aside, put it down.
Yeah, it's going to be different, dependent on the brand, dependent on the watch. I mean, everyone knows why the Speedmaster is an important watch. Like we don't need to kind of like belabor the point there. But for a new brand with like a genuinely like new idea, that can be valuable to discuss that. Garrett, do you have any thoughts on that on that topic? You don't really review watches so much, but you're a consumer of this content. Like how do you feel about sort of like reading watch reviews that kind of dive into that angle?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really useful piece, like especially if it's a brand that I don't know or that a reader doesn't know. It can be really nice to shape the kind of overall profile of the review, but you can't let it drive the entire review because you get too intertwined with the philosophy and not enough on the watch.
Cool. That's a good question. What's next, Devin?
Let's jump over out of watches for a moment here. Let's talk about more of the EDC and gear side for just a moment. Sean, the really big supplier of questions in our Slack Plus community. Big shout out to Sean over there. Wanted to know any go-to sneaker recommendations for just walking around town. Sean has asked us several times, usually around the Wind Up Watch Fairs, because I think he's looking to pick our brain on what doesn't kill us when we go to the Wind Up Watch Fairs. But he specifically asked about not full blown out running shoes with crazy colors, but something a bit more fashionable or comfortable.
Gotta go New Balance. It's the only brand of sneaker that I get at this point, because they're comfortable, and they almost always have like neutral gray. Like gray is sort of New Balance's color, like the vintage gray style. I particularly go for, and they might be like running sneaker aesthetic, but they're like the vintage ones are not really running sneakers by today's standards, so to speak. I usually go for the made in US models because they are built a little better and have like nicer quality leather and such. But they, you pay for it.
Yeah, I co-sign on that. I don't know which like model number it is. I have a pair of New Balance shoes that I bought actually ahead of the Chicago show. That because I remember like the previous year, like Chicago just absolutely like killed me. And so yeah, I bought like a better pair of shoes, and then I was very satisfied with them. So yeah, New Balance is good. I wear Nike Kill Shots like every single day. They're not like the most supportive, like comfortable shoe for like long periods of time when you're standing, but like at a show. But they're not like the worst, either. So yeah, that's sort of how I approach these things.
Yeah, I'm not a big like sneaker wearer, but I've got a pair of Arc'teryx Copic boots that are like the most comfortable shoes that I wear. And if I'm at a fair wearing pants, I'll throw those on because I know I can wear them for 8-10 hours a day and be perfectly fine.
Thank you for wearing pants. Always.
Pants, not shorts. Let me just clarify that.
Well, you talked about your Speedo earlier, so I'm trying to get just trying to land the plane here. How about you, Devin? What about your footwear choice?
I mean, it used to be Vans slip-ons all the time, straight white, easy go-to. But I've been wearing a lot of leather loafers lately. Just, I don't know why. I don't know what happened to me. I think I aged very quickly and just got like old man very quick. But I also have a pair of all black Brooks Beasts. Beasts? Yeah, I think so. They're very comfortable, but they're very under the radar. They're running shoes technically, but they're very supportive, very cushioned, but all black, so they don't look like running shoes. If you're looking for something that doesn't look like a running shoe, highly recommend them because I could wear those for like 10 days straight and would not feel like I'm wearing anything. They're awesome.
Yeah, cool. Good recommendations. We'll put links for all of those in the show notes. What's next, Evan? I love this rapid fire. These are good. These are good.
Yeah, that's cool. We got a lot of questions, so let's keep shooting through them. All right, what television series do you feel does not get enough love or any love?
Either you guys got a good answer for this? I'm gonna need to think about.
I need to look up the name of it because I just don't.
I got a great one. I can just start off right off the bat here.
Yeah,
okay.
Go for
There's a show on Amazon Prime. I think there's only 2 seasons, maybe 3, but it's called Patriot. Came out a while ago, discontinued. It is awesome. Basically, it's like a father and 2 brothers. One is a spy, one kind of is his handler, and the other one's a politician. A lot of drama happens. There's a really good like underbelly story of depression in there mixed in. A lot of crazy stuff happens. I'm not going to give anything away. You should just go watch the show because it's fantastic. Patriot, not The Patriot. There's no Mel Gibson, so you're safe.
Oh, man.
But fantastic show. And I swear once you start watching it, you will binge every single episode in a weekend. It is phenomenal.
All right, I got my choice. If you're
I
had one, and it reminded me of another one, which is better, which is the Expanse series. If you've never watched the Expanse series, you got to do that. It's like 6 seasons or something. I believe they're all on Amazon Prime at this point. Just exceptional sci-fi and like the sibling to an exceptional book series. I feel like people didn't really like it when it was on, which is why I jumped channels. It was on Sci-Fi, and then again to get picked up by Prime. But similarly, Foundation on Apple TV, which I've really enjoyed. It's not, not every episode is a grand slam. I mean, there's a lot of there's filler content in there, but the overarching storyline, which is too hard to describe, is really neat, and the production values are pretty fantastic on it as well.
I watched the first season of Foundation. I need to get back into it. It's
so last season was a doozy. It was good. Yeah.
So I thought of one. A show that I love that I feel like is kind of forgotten, except from the hardcore people like me, I guess, is The Leftovers, which is an HBO series.
Oh,
ran for 3 seasons.
Rewatching it right now.
Yeah, it's great. So that's a show. It was Damon Lindelof's follow up to Lost, which coming off of Lost, he was kind of not. His stock was kind of low because Lost ended in a pretty notably terrible way, and I feel like you can read The Leftovers sort of as a response to that and correcting some of the mistakes of Lost in some ways. But it's just a really compelling show. Every season is very different, and the first season in particular is extremely bleak and depressing, and the rest of the show is not like that. It changes tones a lot in the second and third season. So if you can get through the first season, it's really, really rewarding. And it goes in really unexpected places. It has a handful of individual episodes that I think are just among the best TV episodes of the last 20 years or so. Just really, really great stuff. And it has a finale that is jaw-droppingly great. So it really rewards you if you make it through to the end. So yeah, Leftovers, amazing show. And on one hand, I kind of wish it lasted a little longer, but on the other hand, it's sort of a perfectly told story in 3 seasons. So yeah, go watch The Leftovers.
So I think that's where Margaret Qualley got her start.
Yeah. That was, I don't know if that was her start, but that was sort of definitely the first time she was. It was a big exposure for her. Yeah. I mean, she's very good. In the show, the whole cast is great. Garrett, what have you got?
I've got nothing. I'm so bad about not watching TV or movies. Fair. So I literally just wrote down all of your all's answers so I can go watch them when I have free time.
All right. I expect you to binge watch The Leftovers, and we're recording this before Wind Up, and it'll air after. But I hope we can. Let's talk Leftovers.
I literally just finished the first season. My girlfriend hadn't watched it, and I hadn't seen it since it first aired, and I liked it a lot more rewatching it as well. But the first season is not warm and fuzzy.
No, first season is really it's tough, and I feel like a lot of people kind of bailed out after the first season. And, but in my opinion, the series keeps getting better as it goes along. So,
Garrett, I have another one for you, real quick. This is for Garrett only, not even for the listener. No,
I'll close my ears.
Justified. If you haven't watched Justified, you have to watch
Garrett
Justified.
show. That is
my dad loved that because it was a long series, wasn't it?
It's several seasons. Yeah. It's been a while.
I think it's one my dad was obsessed with it, bought the DVD copies of it all. So yeah, that should be on the list. I'll have to add it.
No. I was joking. That's for everyone. That's one of the best written shows. Until that extra season they made that 2 years ago. Just don't watch that.
Great question. Love to talk about TV. Just couch potato at heart. So.
Yeah, we talk about movies a lot, but we should do a TV podcast now. Why not?
Sure, I'm game. We've talked about TV on the Time on Screen podcast.
That's true. Yeah. All right. Let's get back to watches here. We did a group editorial article about our recent Seiko favorites of all time. Sean also wanted to know if you contributed to this article, what was your second pick? And if you did not take part, what is your top favorite Seiko of all time?
I contributed. I picked the.
So did I, because I like to help.
Thank you. It's much appreciated. I don't know that I had a second pick behind the Seiko. It was always going to be that. I mean, there's obviously a lot of great Seikos. I've been wearing I bought a Cocktail Time recently. That would be one that's up there for me personally. There's so many different examples of cocktail times that have been made over the years. But yeah, I mean, for me, like it was always going to be the Orange Monster, just because that's like a watch that like had a impact on my, collecting journey, as they say. So yeah, I guess that's sort of like a hard number one, like a number one, like by a large margin. Yeah, Devin, what did you pick, and did you have a?
So I rage baited a lot of people and talked disparagingly about the Turtle and the Sumo and the SKX right. Very quickly. Yeah, it didn't work. People just breezed really quickly over my article and realized what I was doing. I picked the Samurai because that is just the Seiko that kind of got me into Seikos. I don't know. There's something about that angular case that really attracted me to it. It was different than what I saw everyone else wearing. I saw everyone wearing turtles and was like, I want something a little bit different. I want something to go against the grain a bit. And I liked the bezel, the way it had the knurling on the bezel a little bit differently too.
Mm-hmm.
There was something about that watch that drew me to it. It seemed a bit more industrial rather than organic, which I thought was kind of neat for a dive watch. And so the Samurai was an easy choice for me. But the second choice probably has... I hate that I'm going to say the Turtle, but it is probably the Turtle or the SKX maybe. Those are the two that I still go back to. I've owned Cocktail Times. I've owned tons of other Turtles, but other Seikos, and I've moved a bunch of them on. The only ones that are still in my collection at this point, I think, are just the SKX 007 and the Turtle. And the Turtle I like so much for the wearing experience and the geometry of it that I broke the movement and I set it to 1010 and I still wear it broken, just for the joy of wearing that watch. So if that doesn't say something about how much I like that watch, I don't know what does.
That's weird.
Yep,
I don't know that I support wearing a broken watch. Andy Warhol could do it, but
I love the aesthetics.
Okay.
Weiss, back me up. As a designer, you can appreciate the aesthetics of a watch outside of the mechanisms, correct?
Certainly, but then they sit on the desk. I don't really wear them very often.
My body is a canvas, and I'm here to paint.
Wow.
Zach, I don't know that you participate. I mean, you've been asked probably more times than any of us about your favorite Seiko of all time. That's a common question around here. What are your thoughts at this moment on your top Seiko?
I didn't participate because I had a hard time thinking of one, and then I kind of just got busy and honestly forgot about it until it was kind of too late. But I have a really hard time picking favorites of anything. So like, it's just a challenge for me. And as much as I've always loved Seiko, it's like, I don't know, like there isn't a singular watch of theirs that I'd say is like one of my favorite watches of all time kind of a thing. I just I like their watches. Like I like wearing their watches. I enjoy the ones I have, but it's not quite, I don't know. It's like a different thing. They're more utilitarian for me, I guess, than that. But they're obviously fantastic design. So now just thinking about it, and like, I haven't seen one of these in person in a really long time, so I might take it back if I were to see one. But those weird spring drive GMT land dwellers.
Oh yeah. Those are
cool. Oh yeah.
Those were pretty neat. They were titanium. They might be like 43 millimeters or something like that. So I would have been between that, and also like I wrote about my Sportura before, the Kinetic. I've covered that. I did the Willard on something recently. Like these are all watches I like a lot. The original 6159 would have been the other one I would have weighed against. Yep. So like gilt dial, high beat. I remember seeing one of those at Red Bar years ago, like first one I saw in the metal, and I was just blown away by it. Especially at the time when everyone was just bringing in vintage Speedies and vintage Submariners, and then one guy had one of these, and I was just like, that is so much cooler than everything else here right now.
Yeah.
But
how about you, Garrett?
Mine would probably have to be the SNKN 43. I mean, it's a weird reference that I felt like just kind of fell off the face of the earth and never really resonated with anyone. But I got one super cheap as I was getting into watches, and it just like first mechanical that I bought, first Seiko. It's DLC black on black. I mean, at the time it was everything I wanted it to be until I got home and realized that it had like 23 millimeter lug to lug or lug width, and so you can't like change the strap at all on it. And then I never wore it again.
Yeah. There's power in that first one, like it makes an impression when you find one that you like, and it's the first. So, cool. What's next, Devin?
All right, What would you do to put Bremont back on the straight and narrow, so to speak? Yes, this assumes that they have lost their way, and while I don't think they fully have, it seems like the common sentiment in the community right now is that they might have.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even. I don't think
what news is this?
Yeah.
I mean, hey, the person who wrote this question says that they don't think that they have. So I do think that there is some divide in the community. Yeah. And crickets.
I think that it seems to me that the goal of the brand right now is to like revenue generation. Like they're trying to make a mass market product, and they're doing, I think, what they need to do that. I think that it kind of maybe leaves some of the core enthusiasts who supported the brand and like made the brand into kind of like it made the brand what it was before, like the Davide Serrato era, but I think I wouldn't. It's such a hard question because I feel like they're doing the things they need to do from a business perspective, probably to succeed long term. But they're not going to be as much of a factor for people like us because they'll make a lot of kind of generic watches with some like cool enthusiast stuff like thrown into the mix. Like I really like the Meteor watch that I saw at Geneva Watches. I thought that was like a genuinely cool thing. But most of the watches they're making are kind of like, they're pretty average field watches, pilot's watches that aren't really. They don't have like as much in common with the Bremont DNA of years past. So yeah, I don't know. Like framing it as like, what would you do to like get them back on track is kind of a tricky way to look at it because I feel like they're doing exactly what what they've set out to do, and like getting them back on track with the enthusiast market is probably like not healthy for the company. So
yeah.
Zach, what are your thoughts on the current state of Bremont?
I mean, I agree with what you said in terms of like a business approach, like a philosophical business approach. So I would add that I feel like right now they are not quite sure what they want to be in terms of price point. Mm-hmm. That was part of their sort of rebrand, was to become more accessible, and yet the prices are still fairly high. You have a $5,000 pilot watch on a leather strap. So, like they're still sort of where they were before. Maybe they're like where they were before a few years of price inflation. But to me, like remembering Bremont, they were always like a 5 to 8K brand for the majority of their watches. And then they had like special stuff above that. And they were expensive, particularly at the time, but like they were a luxury watch brand, right? And like that was sort of the air to them. And they had the romance of flying and the mascot of the two brothers, and they're sort of like the life they led. It had like that sort of a lifestyle, luxury lifestyle component to it, and now it doesn't feel like that as much. So, and I think it's very, very difficult for a luxury brand to kind of go down market without being a diffusion brand. So, I mean, they put themselves in a very tricky situation. So, I almost feel like either a more dramatic rebrand to have gone lower price would have been necessary, or less and kind of just staying where they were. And it seems like they started going one way and then tried to course correct back a little bit. Mm-hmm. So like on one hand, I agree they have to be doing kind of what they're doing in terms of the like more generic to be more common denominator sort of product. At the same time, I think they need to find that kernel that makes Bremont special again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, to be fair to you, I think a lot of the people who are screaming and criticizing Bremont are people who, before the rebrand, didn't pay attention to Bremont anyway. They were always kind of like a pretty, I don't want to say they were a niche enthusiast brand, but like they weren't a mass appealing enthusiast brand the whole time.
I think it's fair to say they were a niche brand. Like I don't think they, by all accounts, like they weren't. I mean, the reason that they're in the position that they are now is because they didn't sell particularly well, So like they always had like a really loud, dedicated following, but there was never a ton of evidence that they were actually selling a lot of watches,
right?
So
they existed in such a weird time. I mean, they were, I forget when they started, but like I remember going into the now Bucher store in 57th, but back in the day, the Torno Time Machine, like with my dad. So this was maybe, I mean, this could have been in college or something that I was just back and like we were hanging out and seeing a Braemont, set up there. Mm-hmm. So at retail. So like they were well before really like direct to consumer online stuff had picked up. So the game really was to go full retail, and then you have the full retail margin and everything that comes along with that. So they did everything you would do to ramp that up. You got investors and they built a company to try to succeed like that. But it's so like it's such a brutal way to have to for your brand to survive. And not many brands try to go that route. I mean, there's a couple right now that are trying to do it, and I wish them the best of success. But it's like they're on a similar track where you need to pump a lot of money into it, and you need. Yeah. So I feel like if Braemont just started 5 years ago as like a luxury pilot watch brand, like I think they would have a very different trajectory now. Well,
obviously you wouldn't have the same discourse around them. You might have some people who don't like the designs, but you wouldn't have the same sort of go back to the way it was argument, which...
Yeah, but I feel like they wouldn't even have to go down the retail route necessarily.
True. You know what exactly. I mean? It would be a whole different approach, which would set them up better. And I think you're right, too, about the way that they're setting up their pricing structure versus their designs. If you look at their catalog, if they were to... I mean, they're sitting at between, 5 and 7 for a lot of their watches right now. Mm-hmm. If you were to take those designs and put them between 2,500 and 5, I think most people would look at those and maybe consider them, or at the very least, not be mad at them.
But then you have the problem of like what Zach alluded to of a luxury brand going down market. Like that just never works. Like it's
so damaging to the brand.
Image of the brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
it's such a difficult situation.
It's tough. Yeah, exactly. And so realistically, I think what we're all saying is we can't course correct. They just have to keep doing what they are currently doing if this is the direction that they want to go. And realistically, if this isn't the direction that they want to go, it's kind of too late to change it. They kind of have to stick to their guns for at least a little while and hope that it works out for them. And so far, I think that they're starting to shift perceptions slightly with the release of the new MB that they just did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the writing was on the wall with old Braemont too for a few years. It felt like they didn't come out with anything new, or if they did, it was another collaboration with some corporation. And it didn't really feel like they were, innovating anymore. So by virtue of the fact that they're coming out with more watches, they're on top of a cycle. We're talking about them. Everyone's talking about them. Like that all pays off in the end somehow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think at this point, I mean, they've committed to a course. And really, the whole thing now is just get in front of your current audience and find new audiences that maybe is not so attached to what was and will accept you as you are and just try to move forward from there.
Yeah, well, we will see. I mean, what their strategy is not it's not a quick fix strategy. It's something that takes a long time to execute. So I guess time will tell with Braemont. But yeah, good question. Certainly one of the most interesting kind of stories in the watch industry in the last few years is what's going on with that brand. So we'll keep watching it. What's next, Evan?
Well, speaking of history, long stories, and developments, posting the Q&A question in our Slack Plus community actually sparked a longer conversation in there, but it brought up a pretty interesting question. Jared started talking about, actually one of our previous podcasts where you guys were talking about alternatives to the Submariner. Mm-hmm. And Jared brought up the Squale 1521. And then he started talking about why nobody talks about Squale and instead Doxa gets all of the love, but he's not sure why and wanted us to speak on that.
The other day in a meeting, I should not say this out loud, but I'm doing it. I already started. In a meeting that, like totally unrelated to this, like literally 2 days ago or something, I was like, somebody was asking me within the company, like how is Doxa successful? How popular are they? And I was like, I would kind of think of them as like a more successful version of what Squale has done. These are just historic brands that are making the same watch and have been for forever, but people talk about Doxa and they don't talk about Squale.
Mm-hmm.
So I am like 100% agree with that sentiment. And I mean, the whys that's the hard part. Man, the 1521 is a great watch. Doxa is a great watch. You just got to look at how the brands have operated over the years and, the marketing power behind them. I honestly, I forgot what the question was because I was thinking about the fact that I had that conversation, but,
they asked why nobody talks about Squale, but Doxa gets all of the love. There was a longer conversation happening where Jared brought up the fact that Squale was making cases for Blancpain, and Doxa went away and Squale stayed around. So why hasn't Squale grown? And there's still the fever for Doxa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a good answer for that. I think that one of the I don't know. I honestly I'm kind of stumped. Like I don't have like this. The market's weird and like some preferences are fickle and like it doesn't always make a lot of sense. I don't know.
It could be the vintage side of it. I mean, while the modern brand was quiet, you had I just think of like James Lambden, Analog Shift. Like I know that like the Aqualung, Doxa, like those are watches that he has always been a very strong proponent for, and they just had fans a cult that pushed it. Vintage Squale is not really something people talk about. They're out there, but I can't recall seeing one anytime recently.
Yeah,
maybe unless it was a
just
case
needs like a champion. They need like someone like a James Lambden type.
Yeah.
To,
I was gonna say the Grey NATO is the other thing. They are super into Doxa.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna point to three things with Squale. I think number one, the fact that they had staying power, whereas Doxa went away. I think that actually helped Doxa. It allowed people to dive into the vintage archives a little bit more. It made people who wanted it have to seek out the vintage, seek out the history, and learn a little bit more about the brand. Whereas Squale, you can still just order them. You don't have to hunt for vintage. You don't have to learn the history. They are readily available. That, to a certain extent, hurts people when they're trying to get past that education standpoint of the brand. Number two, when they do find Squale, the first thing that they see is the name printed on the watch twice. Now, there's a historical reason for that. But to the young enthusiast, they see that, they get confused, and they wonder why the word Squale is written inside of like an eel-looking thing on the dial, and they immediately click off of it.
It's a whale, right?
It's a shark.
It's a shark.
A shark.
But if you just look at it very quickly, it looks like the word Squale is written inside of an eel. And to, again, a young enthusiast, you see Squale written twice inside of an eel, and you're like, what the heck is this? And you click away.
I've never once thought it was an eel. I thought it was a whale, and I was apparently wrong. But I never
there you go.
Eel.
And then the third thing that I will point out too is that Squale has toyed in the past and continues to with the kind of homage territory, which they have gotten a little bit of heat for.
Yeah, that's good.
And in doing so, people have looked at them and kind of questioned, rightly or wrongly, their history, lineage, heritage, whatever the case may be. And those are the three things that I think has hurt them in the long run, whereas Doxa has just been Doxa the whole time. Yeah, there have been things where they make designs that might not be historically accurate. They might play with their pricing points and play with their movements and, tweak their case shapes slightly or their sizes. But overall, if you look at a Doxa, it looks like a Doxa.
Yeah. The homage thing is a good point. I feel like when you kind of dabble in that world, it's kind of hard to get the stink of like homage watches off of you when enthusiasts are looking at your brand. So and Doxa has just kind of always been like an original product, whether you like it or not. It's kind of hard to deny that. Garrett, do you have any thoughts on Squale versus Doxa?
I mean, the biggest thing for me is like I feel like I've randomly come across more Doxas in the wild than I have Squales. And I think that's the biggest part. It was like, if it's not prevalent on the wrist of people that I'm around, it's just not going to be my ecosystem. And, for whatever that reason is, maybe because other people aren't into it and aren't talking about it, I have barely seen it. And it just, when I do see them, they don't resonate with me, which is weird because I love a good tool dive watch. And I don't know. I need to dive into this one and see what's going on here. But no, I have no idea.
It's another mystery of the watch world, apparently.
Speaking on mysteries, jumping over to Instagram for another question here. Why were chronographs from the 20th century so much thinner than new modern chronographs?
I mean that depends on what you're looking at. I think what people are probably thinking about is anything that is Valjoux 7750 based or referencing the 7750, which designed in the 70s and has sort of become the standard for all third-party chronographs. So like any watch that we're likely to purchase, I'd say like up to maybe like Habring. I mean, there might be something I'm just not thinking of is going, and those are still sort of based on Valjoux 7750. It's like that is just the root of them all, and those are thick movements, but they're also like robust movements. It's like it's the movement that won the war, sort of, so to speak, and then like manual wound chronographs now are just 7750 based movements without the automatic winding system. Like you don't have the old like those beautiful old movements, but then you can get to them. It's just a matter of if you're willing to pay. But
yeah,
I mean that's my 2 cents at least.
No, I think that's right. I think it comes down to the movement. The 7750 architecture is it kind of dominates the chronograph landscape, and it's sort of a bit like VHS versus Betamax. Like everyone agrees that Betamax was like the superior format, the superior product.
You agree, right, Garrett? Betamax was better than VHS.
This predates Garrett by like multiple decades, but VHS was cheaper, more, it was easier to make. So like, there's a lot of reasons why VHS sort of like won that war, and you end up with something that's like adopted by the masses but kind of clunky. And I think it's a similar sort of idea with these chronographs. I haven't spent a ton of time thinking about that analogy, so there might be ways to poke holes in that, but that's just sort of what comes to mind.
I'm trying to look up the size of it now, but that the Zenith Defy USM chronograph that they came out with, where
I think it's like
it's another iconic movement.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's probably a little chunky, but I'm trying to think about the diameter, because basically you can't get anything that's Valjoux 7750 based into a case under 38 millimeters.
Yeah,
I've yet to really see one. Here it is. Here's the case.
It's a 39.
Okay, so they got to 37 millimeters with the El Primero. TBD on the thickness on that. But yeah, still not like the El Primero is not exactly the most like elegant of chronograph movement, like compared to like the other ones we're talking about. I mean, honestly, the nicest mechanical wound chronograph is sitting on Garrett's wrist.
Yep.
Like the Speedmaster, I don't remember, it was like 3861 now, I think is the base caliber there that they call it. It still draws from the old Lemanias. Like ultimately, like that looks like it always has, barring the fact that you have a coaxial escapement in there.
I think if you remove the word chronograph from that question, you would have every company arguing friction, lubrication, mass market parts. We have to order everything. We can't make it in house, and a lot of it boils down to, I'm going to use the word laziness because that is a word that has been used by other people, but it is the fact that you can't necessarily spend all of the time, the money, the resources in manufacturing things as thin as they could be, because you have to manufacture at a bigger scale. You have to manufacture faster. You have to account for the fact that you want longer servicing intervals. You have to account for the fact that people aren't going to take care of them like maybe they used to take care of them. It's unfortunate, but that does mean that, I read the article about the Caravel Sea Hunter, and you look at the old one versus the new one, and it's almost twice as thick, or it feels like it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But also, too, we actually test things, whereas we didn't always used to test things for depth, and we add crystals that are thicker, and that happens too. So, it's not always necessarily the movements are thinner. Sometimes movement architecture is thinner, absolutely. But I think sometimes people assume that the movement is taking up the bulk of the thickness in modern watches, and that's not always the case. So,
cool. All right. I think we got time for like maybe 2 or 3 questions if they're.
I got to pick some really good ones then.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. Here's an interesting one. Why do more brands not offer clear, scratch-resistant coatings like Traska does?
You have to ask them.
Yeah, why asking us?
It's a little bit like that's hard to say. I mean, it would add cost.
Yeah,
certainly.
Yeah.
So not every brand wants to add cost. Yeah, I think people forget, but like a lot of Seikos and a lot of Citizens do have similar kind of, coatings on them. I like Dura something and whatnot. It's all, I'm gonna say it's all. I don't know what all the like proprietary things are, but I believe there's a clear Cerakote and there's also like a clear DLC coating that people use. It can also give it a little bit of a funny texture to a watch, so everyone likes that. There was a time when I really thought like every watch needed to be hardened or have like a coating on it. Like, I was obsessed with Sin and tegimenting and Damasco, and I was like, this is so cool. Sport watches need this. And then you get a watch that doesn't look any different 5-10 years down the line, and you can either love that or hate it. There is a little bit of the like putting your story into a watch that has a charm to it. So I think there's also a conscious choice there that like, I want to make watches that wear.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that sometimes it might be, I mean, obviously there's a cost factor in adding a coating, but sometimes it's a design and aesthetic choice as well, because it does impact there's a textural factor. What you can do with finishing is, changes when you put a coating on it. And some brands might just make a decision, for a particular watch that they they want the finishing to look a certain way. They want to accomplish something specific with the with the texture of a case, and a coating would make that difficult or impossible or too costly. So there's a lot of reasons to not use a coating. The only reason I think to use a coating is to prevent it from from scratching, which may or may not be desirable to every customer. So
you probably also can't refinish it.
Yeah,
so like on a certain price point, if you damage that watch, I wonder if this Grand Seiko comes across this, but like if you damage that watch, like there's nothing you can do about it, because it's not like you can polish it again if there's a coating on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hadn't thought of that, but that's probably right.
Yeah.
We need to come up with a coating that's like 5 washes and it comes off. So that way you can you can wear it, and if you don't like it, you can sell it easily and it looks brand new. But if you do like the watch, you can wash it off and just keep it forever.
There you go. Keep it forever. What does that mean?
I don't know.
Garrett, you're a tool watch guy. What are your thoughts on coatings on these?
I feel like it's something I see, in that kind of $700 to $1,500 range on a lot of watches, trying to kind of like get a foothold into the market, as and I don't want to say it's marketing only, because there is physical benefits, but I feel like it's a marketing key point for some brands. And if you want your watch to look pristine or pristine longer, it's a great thing to have. But at scale, it's another step in manufacturing. I can't imagine that all of these brands are doing this in-house. So you're outsourcing, which creates potential for delays. And quite honestly, if I'm buying a tool watch, if I'm doing something where I'm going to beat a watch up, I kind of want it to scuff and ding at least a little bit, get a good bit of character on there.
Yeah, fair. Not everyone wants a watch to look pristine forever. So I think that's a legitimate point of view for sure. Let's do one more, and then we'll move into final Rex. So or cultural Rex. So
all right,
make this a good one.
Well, apologies to everybody out there who sent in. We got so many great questions, honestly, that we're going to have some extras. Maybe at the end of the year, we'll do like a wrap up of all the ones we never got to. We can just have like a mega episode.
Thanksgiving leftovers is what we would call that. Yeah,
that's pretty fun.
Leftover questions. Yeah.
All right. Let's do this then. If you could reshape one thing about the watch market, what would it be?
Reshape one thing about the watch market.
We touched on some things here and there a little bit, talking about Bremont, talking about collecting sphere and stuff like that. But if there's one thing that you could reshape, one thing you could change, what would you change?
Gosh,
we all have
that's
our gripes.
Tricky question.
Yeah.
So one thing that comes to mind immediately is something that's already kind of changing for the better, and that's just like increased transparency, like brands just kind of like being upfront with their customers about where things come from and how things are made. I think that's good for the industry and good for the market. And the more people are educated about those types of things, the better decisions that they'll make. And so, yeah, I think that's sort of that's what I think of immediately is just an increased level of transparency among watch brands. Because I mean, the thing about the watch industry, the watch industry, the watch market for years, like the thing that people hated about it so much was the among other things, I guess, was like kind of like the smoke and mirrors aspect of like watch marketing and how brands would just kind of like lie, for lack of a better term, and just like use a lot of fluff to get people to buy very expensive things that they don't need. And I feel like that is gradually kind of changing. Like you see that less from like the high-end luxury brands, and the enthusiast focused brands I think have really shifted to a more kind of like honest and transparent model, to the point where when I see a brand marketing a watch in like a really kind of like obnoxious way that just seems like made up BS, like it really stands out. I can think of a few just off the top of my head from this morning's emails, but yeah. How about you guys? What are your thoughts on that?
I would go with like the dominance and deference to the Holy Trinity and Rolex and some of basically the top brands.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Like, I just think that it's sort of, those brands being, this is kind of like a couple of reasons. Like, one is that they're the bellwether, right? Like, so anything that how they are affected by things is supposed to be an indicator of the entire market, when it's not necessarily, like as we know in like the enthusiast area, which is granted a small percentage of the watch market as a whole. It doesn't necessarily indicate what's happening in our circles and with the brands that we discuss. So it's like it can be a little irritating, but I know we're talking macroeconomics anyway, usually. But then also just as like sort of a cultural thing, it's like I think there's a lack of actual critical thought about those brands, often because of fear of reprisal or not being accepted into the industry, or not being accepted by peers in the industry who also are deferential to them. I just got a thumbs up bubble. And I've just always found that very irritating.
Yeah. Hates Rolex.
And I'm not saying that either. I'm not saying that, it's nothing about hating those brands. It's just like that, everything has to stop and you have to compare everything to these brands. And, they're not necessarily always making decisions based on the love of horology. They could be very much money making decisions. And also aesthetically, it's just, yeah, I feel like I think I've said enough. I've said enough. I'm like putting my foot in my mouth a little bit, so I'm going to stop. But yeah, I'll stay.
Garrett, how about you? What would you change about the watch market or the watch industry if you could?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me, like, as I was getting into watches, really just a couple of years ago, there was such a, I guess, for no reason at all, but there's such a fear of walking into like a big AD or a big jewelry store in Kentucky to go look at watches. And I don't know why, because they had no way to know that I didn't have money to buy the watches. But I would just love to make the kind of AD experience less daunting for first time buyers and younger generations coming into watches that are, maybe you're going to go in and you're not going to buy that Rolex today, but it's going to be the Grail piece in 10 years or an Omega or whatever else, and just kind of make it the transition, the on-ramp a little bit easier for younger people getting into watches that aspire to pick something up from the luxury dealers.
Devin, your thoughts?
I was originally going to say something about the secondhand market. Like obviously we have reselling platforms for higher end watches, but nobody really wants to cater to lower end watches. And that really sucks if you're stuck with $100, $500 or less watches.
Are you speaking from experience here?
Yeah. And eBay wants to take 17% of everything that you sell, and then you still have to buy a shipping label. And it would be really awesome if someone made a platform that didn't try to screw you over, even though you're doing all the work. Just putting that out there.
Oh, like the auction site that you just made. Got it.
Just like anything that would, and we didn't have to go through Facebook Marketplace in order to sell watches, or like forums or whatever. That'd be kind of cool. But one thing about like the primary market, not secondary market, that I would like to change is the amount of like waste and time that gets wasted, I guess, on packaging. This is something that I'm like, I love packaging. I get really weirdly passionate about packaging. Like, I will buy something specifically because the package looks cool, or I want to display it or something like that, especially for like photo props or whatnot. So if you spend the time to make the box look really cool, I'm going to put it on my shelf. But do you know how many crappy looking boxes are sitting in the back of my closet right now that I really want to throw out, but I can't because at some point I might sell a watch? I hate that so much about this industry. Stop making, and you know what, Omega, I love you, but like your giant stupid wooden boxes that take up like 5 square feet just to host one watch is ridiculous. Make something that looks cool. Why does the Speedmaster not come in a little rocket ship? Like, why not like do something cool? I don't know.
I was having a conversation that actually was relevant to this the other day with a friend, and like, you think about the one watch guy, like, Speedmaster is a good example because they're often like the wedding gift kind of a thing, or the engagement watch. And so like, you don't have a closet full. You have this one thing and it's presented to you in this magnificent oversized box. And it's like, it's designed for that guy. So what I think they need to do is the enthusiast editions, where it's just that little box in there. That's all. You can get it with just that too. And maybe you have to pay the same price, but you know what you're getting or something.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, I literally have a large, I don't know, a 32-gallon plastic container now full of the boxes I have to keep, which is stuck up in a closet. And closet space in Brooklyn is extraordinarily valuable. So yeah. I've lost a lot just to this. So,
we all have our cross to bear. Watch enthusiasts. It's just all about, hanging on to that packaging, but that's a really good point. I completely agree. I think there's, I could do without another luxury presentation box that's like super heavy and expensive to ship. And of course it's factored into the price of the watch in a way that, it's all just, what was I saying about marketing BS? It's all related. It all ties together. I think that does it for questions. That was a lot of really good questions. And I trust there are even more that we didn't get to. You guys have some cultural recommendations? Devin, you specifically before we got online mentioned that you had one. It sounds like you have a good one. I have a bad one, or not a bad one, just like a really boring one. So I'll go first. I'm literally just like grabbing something off my desk here. New iPhones were announced recently. And I have a 2-year-old iPhone, which means it's kind of like in like self-destruct mode at this point. Like it's starting to die. Battery is not so good, but I don't really like any of the new iPhones. I'm not really into the design of the new Pros. I think that the Air is really cool, but I don't like that it just has that one camera, and the battery life is like probably not that good. So I got influenced. I watched a Marques Brownlee video, and he was selling one of these, on a like a paid ad. This is a Ridge charger. And, obviously it's like a magnetic charger.
Oh, no.
That, what?
He's like the marketing director for Ridge. He like owns a stake in that company.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. Well,
I've seen the ads too.
It's a good product. And, it was like $80 or something. And it showed up in like 2 days. And it's breathed new life into my 2-year-old iPhone. I no longer feel the need to upgrade my iPhone. So maybe if you're feeling the same way, and you need a new phone, but you don't like the options that Apple has given you this year, just get a good charger. This thing has like multiple cords on it, like a USB-C and a light. There's a lot. It's good. It's a good product. I'll leave a link to it in the show notes. This is not an ad. I just like the product. Marques Brownlee is making a lot of money on these, I'm sure, but whatever. They're cool. I told you it was bad. I told you I had a bad reputation.
You did preface it. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Who's next?
Gary,
I'll go next. I got excited.
Or Devin.
I got really excited about mine. So I'm pretty sure did I plug the Field Mag physical magazine in a previous podcast? I'm pretty sure I did.
Maybe.
I don't if I did or I didn't, I'm going to plug it again. But Garrett picked this up for me It's the Field Mag Volume 1 physical magazine. They put out their first print issue. I started flipping through it finally and like really reading the articles, and it is freaking awesome. The content is incredible. The visuals are incredible. The writing is really good. But specifically, this volume that Garrett got for me has the cover from Women and the Wind, which is actually an Instagram account that I have been following now for years. It's a trio of women who are on a catamaran boat built out of like wood and scraps that they are piecing together and building themselves, and filming a documentary of the three of them sailing around the world. This incredible journey. And they actually have like the entire kind of behind the scenes story written up in this field mag, and they're screening the documentary of that entire journey around the world now. So pick up the Field Mag Volume 1 and then go read Women and the Wind. Be forewarned, there's some photography in there that might not be child friendly. Don't read it in the airport, but like such a cool magazine, and the story behind these women is incredible. Very inspiring.
Good recommendation. We'll leave a link for that in the show notes for sure. Garrett, what have you got?
Yeah, so I am notoriously bad about having good recs, but there is a YouTube channel that I followed for a while called Becky and Chris. They're upstate New York in Buffalo, I believe. And Becky actually kind of split off and is doing her own channel, a little bit more focused on kind of overlanding, camping, photography. She and her husband did an 11-day overland journey through Iceland. And she put out about an hour-long video on that whole adventure. It's just wonderfully cut. The cinematography is fantastic. The coloring looks great. I mean, it's just an absolute great video to watch. I kind of knew what the story was going to be going into it, and I still felt hooked the entire time. So my rec is her channel is Nothing Epic, and the video is called Wild Roads of Iceland. Highly recommend that one.
Cool. Leave a link for that in the show notes as well. All right, Zach, finish this off. Cultural recommendation.
Right. New album, an album alert. All right. Excellent Brooklyn doom metal outfit, Castle Rat, has come out with a new album called The Bestiary. It is exceptional. They're more on the Black Sabbath side of the doom metal, spectrum. We're not talking the real dark, evoking kind of stuff. So it's pretty jammable. It's more classic rock kind of a vibe there. Really excellent female lead vocals, pretty uncommon, and they're also a fun band. They kind of have like a heavy metal 2000 sort of aesthetic to them, and they put on like a humorous performance live where they're all dressed up and stuff. But the music is very solid, so a good listen.
All right, cool. I like it when Zach goes metal and he provides a metal rec for the metalhead. There's a lot of overlap in between metal and I feel like I meet
a lot of
watches.
Well, yeah, of course.
I've met a fair share of metalhead watch fans for sure.
Same.
We have a Slack channel for metalheads.
We do.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that was fun. Thank you again for joining me for the monthly Q&A podcast, and thank you the listeners and everyone who submitted questions. We couldn't do it without your help, literally, because you come up with the questions that we answered. So thank you for your participation, and we will see you next week for another Morning Round podcast. Until then, take care.